Good morning and welcome to my hobby bench once again. A few weeks ago in one of my videos, and I don't recall which one it was, somebody had made a comment about maybe I should make a video on how to properly store your engines for long-term storage. And I thought about that and I was like, well, and I responded to him saying, I am no expert in this at all, because I am simply just as guilty as many people are in not properly prepping my engines after the runs I do with them. And you might be surprised at that, but I'm not. I mean, that just is the way it is. But so the first thing that we need to discuss before I get into showing you an engine and what I would do is, what's the purpose of your long-term storage? And the purpose of your long-term storage should be to preserve and protect the internal components of the engine. So as you all know, our glow fuel is comprised of three primary components: nitromethane in some cases if you run nitro fuel, methanol, and then oil. Well, the methanol and the nitromethane are the two combustible elements, and the oil is the lubricating and protecting element. So one of the key things that everybody needs to understand is that after you run your engine on a stand, on a plane, in a flight, after a flying session, you need to get all of the combustible fuel out of your engine. And the way you do that, and you've seen me do it probably numerous times on my videos if you stay and watch the end of the video, is what I'll do is I will pull the fuel line while the engine's running and let it run out of fuel, and then I'll put the glow igniter on there and hit it with the electric starter for another 20 seconds or so, 20 to 30 seconds at full throttle or mid throttle, whatever, just to make sure that it is burning and combusting all fuel elements that are still in the engine. And I don't put the tank back, I don't connect the tank back on, you just run it dry like that. So in theory, when you do that, you have just burned off all of the methanol and all the nitromethane. And what does that leave you with? It leaves you with oil. So right then, that is step one of protecting and preserving your engine for any type of storage. You should do this after every flight, just as a matter of course. So that's that. So the oil that you use in your engines, if it's synthetic or castor or whatever, doesn't really matter. It should have a nice thin film all over your engine, all over the internal components. So that should be enough to store your engine for weeks or maybe even several months. However, if you're talking long-term storage, and I'm talking, when I say long-term storage, I'm assuming this person meant like over the winter, how you would prep and store your engines is a big, well, it depends. And what does it depend on? Well, it depends on several things. It depends on, are you storing an engine that's on a flying airplane? Are you taking that engine off the plane? Are you storing it on the plane? Do you have access to the engine? Good access. Are you going to remove the cowling or anything like that? Where is the airplane engine going to be stored? Is it going to be stored in a garage that can be subject to temperatures, colds, extremes? Or is it going to be in an environmentally controlled area? I mean, all of these things are things you have to think about. Now, the same thing, if you're just running engines on a stand like I am, same type of thing. You obviously have full access to the engine, so it's very easy to do those things in. So how you're going to store it, where the engine's located, if you're going to remove it from a plane, all of those things factor into what you can and cannot do easily, or whatever. So with that said, I'm just going to go into protecting an engine in the best way I can explain it to you, because like I said, I'm no expert. I'm just as guilty as many people of not taking care of my engines. Many times I'll just run them on the stand. I will run the fuel out of them, but I don't do anything else with them after that. I'll just take them off the stand and put them back in the box. And if you look on the bench right now, I've got a perfect example of that. Now, I had a perfect example last night too. I happened to pull out my ASP FS 65 four-stroke engine, and that thing was, it had probably only maybe a couple of runs on it. I didn't look to see how many runs I'd done on it. It was locked up. And I was like, shit. So I took care of that engine right away. And I'm thinking the whole time, I'm like, man, I should be making a video of this and showing people what I'm doing. So the next best engine I could find is this beautiful OS FS120. This is the pre-surpass. This is the split rocker case. Just a simply beautiful engine. Now, this engine, when I got it, was brand new in box, complete. And it has a total of 3 runs on it. Now, 2 of the runs are on video. The 3rd run was on video, but whenever that happened, something bad happened to my disc and it got corrupted and I lost that video. So I've only got 2 videos published this. The last time this was run was almost exactly a year ago. Almost exactly. It was December 22nd of 2023. So, and unfortunately, both times that it's on video that I can recall or see proof of, it had nitro fuel run through it. So the first one was a 5 to 7% nitro fuel blend, and the last one was 15% nitro. Now, I cut off the video, at least the edited portion of the video, before I could tell whether I did my, running out of fuel. So all I can say is, I took the plug out. This engine turns over, but it's not super free. It's pretty sticky. So I'm like, oh shit, what did I do to my engine? Now, granted, I just admitted that I don't necessarily take the best care of my engines all the time either. However, in my defense, I also don't have a problem taking engines apart and replacing bearings if necessary. I don't have a problem with that at all because I do it all the time. So it doesn't concern me as much as it might concern some of you that do not feel comfortable doing those things. So that's my little caveat. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take, and this engine has never been opened up at all before. I can tell, listen. You hear that? That sound when you're breaking a fastener free. I've said this many times in many videos. When you're breaking a fastener free and you can hear that clack clack or that crack, that means that is the sign that that was torqued from the factory. How do I know that? Because I've worked in plenty of factories where they have automatic torquing for fasteners, and when it torques, they have a setting that goes and it just hits it, and the way it torques fasteners is it goes to that torque and it stops so quickly that it causes that. I've tried torquing fasteners by hand and I still can't reproduce that. So I know for a fact that means when you hear that sound, that means that it's never been opened before. Now see, look at that, that's right there. Already a little bit of caramely oil. So I have full expectations that when I open this up, okay, listen to these fasteners. When I open this up, you're going to see, it's not going to be really gross in there, but there's going to be dark, oily residue. So I'll show you what personally I would do, my completely non-expert opinion on how I would do this for an engine like mine that runs on the stand or you take off your plane and you have full access to. Like I said, how you do this on airplanes that are the engine's gonna stay in the nose, I don't know. That's up to you. All I'm telling you is what I think the concept should be. Okay, so here's, you can see that's pretty clear. That is pure oil. And it smells like nothing but oil, which is a good thing. So this is not a bad thing at all. So this is really not looking too bad. I've got a nice fresh Q-tip. I'm going to run this Q-tip just around where the connecting rod, or the connecting rod goes. See that? That's pure oil. Pure oil. So I am happy. This looks wonderful. Is it smooth? No, it's not, because I run castor oil in my fuel. So that's going to thicken up over time. And everybody's always hating on castor oil for some reason, but the one thing they don't seem to understand, or don't realize or don't remember, is that when castor oil dries, when it dries and gums an engine up and causes a stuck engine, it's actually protecting the metal. That's what it does. It's a protectant. So it is creating a barrier to rust. And especially if there's no other combustible elements in the engine, nitromethane or methanol, that attract moisture, it can't rust in there. So there is not a spot of rust forming on this counterweight at all. Not a bit. It's perfect looking in there. Now, am I going to do something with this to free it up a little bit? Yes, I am going to do something with it. And what I'm going to do is, and what I would recommend, but see, this, I guess, it looks like I pulled the fuel line and then ran the engine out, because this is what I would expect it to look like. Nothing but pure, beautiful oil residue that smells only like oil. There is no smell or no component smell of methanol or nitro in there at all. So in years past, I was always a big proponent of Marvel Mystery Oil or Marvel Air Tool Oil, or even maybe 3-in-1 oil. 3-in-1 oil I typically use for disassembly of customer engines because it has more of a cleaning and penetrating type of thing going on. Marvel Mystery Oil, I love the smell of it. I mean, I really like the smell of it. Is it the best preservative oil? Probably not, but I used to use it all the time because it was very readily available, like just about any place where I lived. It was inexpensive, and I thought it did a good job. Are there things that do better jobs? I'm sure there are. And one of the things that I think does better job, even though I haven't been able to prove it yet, is this ballistol. In these last few weeks and months, I have just really fallen in love with this. Now, this is a can that I got from a fellow many years ago, and then I just never really used it, and I'm using it now a lot. And unfortunately, this little spray dealie is not the right one that goes on it, and that one's from WD-40 or some shit. I don't know where the one that went with it is, because it doesn't fit in here. And I know in a few videos back I kind of made a comment that I don't care for the aerosol version of this. But, you know, if you have the aerosol version and the proper little nozzle for it, this is ideal. I like this because I did go and buy another can of ballistol. And this is just this 4 fluid ounces. This is 6 ounces. But this is just the oil. And I haven't opened it yet because, quite honestly, I'm not sure how I'm going to use it. It's not exactly inexpensive. And I want to try and find like a squirt bottle or a dropper or something to put some of this in. Not all of it. So I haven't used this yet, this can. I don't know how to use it. Right now I like this. So I don't know if you have to shake this or not. I shake it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to liberally spray. And see, it just creates this foamy look in there from the propellant. Creates that nice foamy residue. And then I just kind of let it sit. Now I'm going to take off this can cover, and I'm going to, listen, I'm going to spray liberally in here also. So look at that bearing. That bearing looks beautiful, perfect. In fact, the entire inside of this thing looks perfect. But again, that's only 3 runs. And I'm also going to shoot this. You just let that sit on there. So basically, how I would say to preserve your engine is do exactly what I'm doing. If you got it on the bench and you can take it off the plane, open up the rear cover. And if it's a 4-stroke and you can get to the timing area like this, because I'm doing it here because it'll help get down into the front bearing. Now, this has the vent here where you could inject oil too, but obviously I can't do that with a spray and aerosol, so it's just as easy just to pop the rear cover off to do this. But so the key to storing your engine long term, or any storing it at all, is burn off all the combustible elements of the fuel, leaving only the oil residue. And if you feel comfortable with the oil and the fuel that you're using, you can just leave it at that. As long as there's no combustible elements that are going to attract moisture, in theory, you should not have an issue at all with ever having corrosion Now this still feels a little tight. I'm going to take this screw off here in the prop washer and the hub because I want to show you what I found under here last night when I pulled this engine out. This has got a Woodruff key on it. So you can see that all of that is oil. And it's drying. It's not dry, but it is drying. So what's the front of the bearing look like? The front of the bearing has a little caramel color to it. So what am I going to do? I'm going to spray the living crap out of that too. And let that sit in there. I'll lose my Woodruff key. Probably used a little bit more than this than I should have, but oh well. So anyway, that, and then finally, once you've got whatever oil your choice is, your choice of oils to put in your engine, rotate it around, get that circulating all through there, and then if you're going to have it like this, put it in a bag or put it back in its original box. A plastic bag is usually a very good thing to keep the environmental elements that may be present, humidity, that type of thing, away from your engine. But I mean, that's basically all there is to it. So key things are burn off all the combustible elements of your fuel and get oil in your engine. A good quality oil to use as a protectant, and make sure it circulates all the way through there. Now there are some things like I read on the OS FF 240 and 320 Pegasus engines in their manual, what they say to do, and that is an engine that in and of itself is a nightmare to maintain, because I really believe you should follow their instructions. But obviously the other thing you could do that I haven't mentioned yet is you could flush your engine out with kerosene, because that's what the OS manual for those flat four-cylinder engines recommends. It says after a flying session or whatever storage, it recommends flushing the engine out with kerosene. Now I have never done that. I don't particularly care for using kerosene, at least not here in my environment now. If I had an outdoor garage or whatever, you know, maybe, but you could flush it with kerosene, do exactly what I'm doing here. Pour kerosene in the engine and then try to get it all out. Let it evaporate. I don't know how you get it all out. And then do your oiling. That's what OS recommends for the flat four-cylinder engines. And that's probably not a bad idea for any engine. I mean, flush it out somehow, but I would not flush it out with glow fuel. I've heard so many people say they'll flush things out with glow fuel. I'm like, that's stupid. First of all, glow fuel is not cheap. And you're just adding components to your engine that are going to promote corrosion and rust. Why would you do that? That makes no sense whatsoever. So the people that say that, you're way out in the weeds. And I would not recommend doing that at all. In fact, people have even recommended doing that as a cleaner, and I think that's stupid. I wouldn't recommend wasting glow fuel on anything other than burning in your engine. I mean, that's just dumb, in my opinion. So anyway, those are the things that I would recommend for long-term storage of any engine, and that's my non-expert opinion on things. Thank you for watching.